In the finale of Loki Season 2, Loki works against fate and destiny to write his own future and become the hero he was always meant to be. Loki Season 2 came to an epic and exciting ending as Loki, Mobius, Sylvie, and their friends desperately sought to save the multiverse from complete and utter destruction. In what has already proven to be the most important installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe's multiverse saga so far, Loki and his friends were at the center of a brand new multiverse's birth. In so doing, Loki managed to rewrite his own destiny and change his life and the universe forever. In the season finale, Loki finally learns the endgame of He Who Remains. Seeing that the multiverse is doomed to continually fall into the Kang variant's hands, Loki decides to tell a different story altogether. Using his new time-slipping powers to brave the devastating power of the exploding Time Loom, Loki creates a brand new multiverse. No longer a chaotic string of alternate realities crashing into one another, the multiverse is now drawn together into a cohesive world tree with Loki at its center, serving as the new He Who Remains. In finally achieving the burden of his glorious purpose, Loki actively rewrites his destiny, both in mythology and the MCU itself. Loki was always fated to destroy the multiverse. Now the MCU's most powerful character, Loki has completely changed his fate, taking his destiny into his own hands for the first time in his long and tragic life. In most stories, Loki is a character who has always been fated for destruction. Even in the original Norse myths in which the character originates, Loki was at the very center of Ragnarok, the end of the universe and the death of the Asgardian gods. In these stories, it was prophesied that Loki would break free from his chains and trigger the onset of Ragnarok. He, Surtur, and their allies would then battle against the Asgardian gods in an epic battle that would lead to the destruction of the universe. The cycle would then begin anew, with the universe and the gods reborn once more. Loki was at the center of the MCU's version of Ragnarok as well. During the events of Thor Ragnarok, Loki and his brother Thor teamed up against their villainous sister Hela, whose power came from Asgard's core. In order to defeat her, the brothers were forced to destroy Asgard itself. In a brilliant allusion to Norse mythology, the film has Loki start Ragnarok by placing the crown of Surtur in the eternal flame. While this was ultimately a heroic and necessary move, Loki is still associated with death and destruction. Shortly thereafter, Loki is killed during the events of Avengers Infinity War, a tragic ending for a character doomed to a fate of loss and failure. Disney's Loki variant has more freedom to choose his destiny than his Earth 616 counterpart. Having been shown the truth of the multiverse, Loki learns of his fate on the sacred timeline, where he would bring about the destruction of Asgard before finally being murdered by the mad titan Thanos. Determined not to meet the same fate as the original variant, Loki makes a new path forward for himself. In so doing, he changes his own destiny and the destiny of the entire multiverse forever. How Loki changed his destiny. The events of Loki Season 2 give its eponymous main character more agency than ever before, helping him change his fate of destruction into one of creation. Loki gains impressive new powers in Season 2, gaining control of his time-slipping abilities and learning how to jump back and forth along the timeline. While he initially uses these powers to make various attempts at repairing the Time Loom, he eventually learns that this plan will never work. Always scheming ahead, He Who Remains had specifically rigged things to ensure that Loki would be forced to choose between the death of the entire multiverse or maintaining the sacred timeline alone. Once more boxed into a destiny of death and destruction, Loki decides to take matters into his own hands, coming up with a far superior third option. In one of the MCU's most emotional endings on Disney yet, Loki resolves not to sacrifice anyone else's life, but his own. Taking Victor Timely's place, Loki steps out toward the Time Loom, enduring its destructive forces thanks to his time-slipping abilities. Growing in power as he gets closer, Loki uses his strength to destroy the Time Loom, which had been preventing the creation of a true multiverse. Surrounded by branching but dying timelines, Loki uses his power to inject new life into each and every alternate reality, tying them together into one giant world tree in the style of Yggdrasil in Norse mythology. Sitting at the center of the tree, Loki becomes a new and better version of He Who Remains, preserving each and every timeline by his mere presence alone. Rather than being a force of death and destruction, as every story claimed he would be, Loki becomes a sustainer of life, having finally achieved his glorious purpose. Loki's twist ending changes the multiverse forever. Most importantly, Loki's actions in the finale make it possible for a multiverse to exist in the first place and builds a new multiverse as the new He Who Remains.